ICT Academy on learning practical research skills and techniques. An innovative integrated approach that will be the 1 week workshop. Thank you being here, sir, for your bringing your energy, ideas, and expertise. Today's Dr. Mohammed is currently working as an associate professor at the Department of Pharmacology, Faculty of Medicine, University of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He has obtained his PhD from Faculty of Medicine, University of Malaysia in 2012. After his one-year postdoc at University of Malaysia, he joined Department of Pharmacology, University of Malaysia in 2013. He is a scientist, number of faculty member, Medicine Institutional, Animal Care and Use Committee, University Malaysia Society, and he has served associate editor for the BMC Complementary and Alternative Medicine Journal. He is also a editorial board member and a review for several international journals. He supervised 7 PhD students and 1 master student completion. He's serving 5 PhD students and 2 master students, and he has published over 50 papers in peer-reviewed journal in H index of 13 and has given over 20 invited and 20 lecture at international conferences. He has obtained several research grants such as UMRG, Triple P, FRGS. Thank you so much, sir, being here, and we are really happy and we are welcome again to you. So kindly, sir, start your session. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. So, do you hear me, everyone? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Clear. Okay, so let me first thanks the organizing committee for the invitation and welcome everyone for this session and good day for everyone. So just give me a few seconds to share my screen. See you. Are you able to see my screen? Are you able to see my screen?
The screen is visible.
Visible. Okay, great.
Yes.
Oops. Okay, so good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this workshop. So let me start my seminar or workshop by a question. Who think that this is, let me just have the pointer first. Yep. So who thinks that the path of publication is kind of this illustration, this graph? Just answer in yourself, because to me, based on my experience, either with my students or with the researcher, some they think this is really the path of the publication. So those are the super, especially for postgrad students, master and PhD students. So those guys, they are the supervisors, the other two, maybe perhaps the reviewer, and then those, the editors of the journal. So believe me, at the end of this seminar or this talk, you'll find out, no, it's not like that. Those people, including supervisor, reviewer, editor, they are trying just to polish your manuscript, to improve the manuscript, to make it better. So hopefully you got the meaning. Okay, so these are the outlines of my workshop or the seminar. So in fact, actually this workshop, it's 3-in-1. It's 3 different topics. So the first topic, as you can see, it's about how to write the manuscript. And then the first part of my talk, I will touch on the editorial process, how to select the journal, how to submit your manuscript and the editorial process. And the last part of my seminar, it will be how to promote your publication. Because it's not the end of the day when your manuscript has been accepted. You have to promote your publication. Okay. To have it more interactive, usually I ask some question during my talk or my seminar. So what do you think? Do you like first the flowers? I'm sure all of you like the flowers. So I have a question here. What do you think? When you have, especially this question, it's for postgrad students, master and PhD students, at which stage you have to submit the manuscript to your supervisors? It should be at this stage, or at this one, or at this one. What do you think? Let me just tell you a story first. In my group, usually all of my postgraduate students, including PhD students, within the first 2 semesters, when they join me, they have to write a review paper, narrative review paper, or systematic review paper. This is good for them first to understand their topic. And actually, they can add that as part of the literature review in their thesis. So I had 2 students in 2014. So I asked them, as usual, and they are from 2 different countries. Please, you have to find topic relevant to your project, and then just write a review about that topic. So one of them just drafted manuscript review paper and submitted this manuscript to me after 1 month. And it looks like this photo. The other student, the other PhD students, it talks for him 1.5 years because he is seeking to get the perfect manuscript. So what do you think? When you should submit the manuscript to your supervisors? At which stage? It should be like this photo or like this? Just ask yourself. The message here, don't get it perfect, just get it written, which means actually the process of publication itself, it will polish. So it's okay to submit your manuscript if it's at this stage. It shouldn't be, of course, like this or like this, because it seems like this, you cannot see the flower. It means the manuscript, it doesn't have the elements of the manuscript. But don't wait until you get your manuscript perfect like this, because this is the process of writing. Your supervisor will polish the manuscript, so will improve the manuscript, then the reviewer, and then the editor. Otherwise, if you want your manuscript to be like this, it will take months, actually. Okay, let me just start with introduction. Some introduction first before I go to the, let me just remove this one. Yep. Oops. So introduction before I go or explain how to write different parts of your manuscript.
Sir, your voice is not coming.
Okay.
Now it's okay.
Okay, now it's okay. Sorry, and accidentally unmute the voice. So let me just start a brief introduction about the manuscripts and how to write the manuscript before I explain how to write different sections in the manuscript. So you have, why to publish a research paper, you have to ask yourself, so if you have research story to tell the reader, the researcher, then you have to write a manuscript. Sometimes writing manuscript, it's requirement for graduation. I'm not sure what's the situation there in your university, but here in University of Malaya, for PhD students to be graduate, they have to publish actually 2 manuscript in ISI journal. For master students, they have to publish at least 1 manuscript in ISI journal. So it could be requirements for graduation. That's why you have to write a manuscript. For academic staff, sometimes it's requirement for promotion from one level to another level. But for some people, they just write a manuscript to improve their CV or for fame. But actually, the main important reason for writing manuscript is to improve our knowledge about that field or that topic. So it's considered kind of contribution to the knowledge. And remember, research, no matter how good, is incomplete until it has been published. So you need to publish your work. So you have spent a lot of money, a lot of time conducting research work, and then you end up without publication. You end with just drafting or writing your data in thesis. So it's considered incomplete. You have to publish this work. So the other researcher, the audience, they will read your work and then build on this work. This illustration also, it shows you that the developed countries like the US, UK, Germany, they have more publication, they produce more articles as compared to developing countries. Japan, so where is India? It's over here. And by the way, this illustration is since 2012. Sorry, I couldn't manage to get updated illustration, but it shows you the difference between the US or UK and other countries. And actually this little, light blue colors, it shows how many top 1% cited articles out of all articles for each countries. We are here in Malaysia, but of course, recently, this is since 2012, we have done really great progress. So I'm sure right now we have too huge or too many articles published per year. So this is another reason to show you that those developed countries, they produce more publication, which will reflect the education system, will reflect the research system there, and the fund that it supports the research as well. So what are the types of manuscripts? I'm sure all of you are familiar with the research articles, or we call it original articles. So actually it's full article and it follows where you conduct research and then you collect your data, and it follows the emirate format. Are you familiar with this term or this acronym? emirate. So emirate, it stands for introduction, methodology, results, and discussion format. And this is the general format actually for most of the manuscripts. The other types of the manuscripts, it's the review paper, or it could be either narrative review or systematic review, or sometimes even meta-analysis. And by the way, my groups also, they produce a lot of systematic review and meta-analysis. And usually, for me also, I conduct another workshop, especially on systematic review and meta-analysis, how to do the meta-analysis. It's different topic. So what's the difference between review paper and original article? The original article, it contains your data, so it's research paper, while review, it's summary, comprehensive summary of published articles or of the literature. And some of the journals, they don't accept the review paper. They just accept research paper, and other journals, they can accept review paper, but it should be by invitation. So they have to invite the authors to submit a review paper. And usually they just contact the expert researcher in the field. The third types of the manuscripts, it's short communication. So what's the short or rapid communication? If you have preliminary result and you think really this preliminary result, you cannot wait until you conduct the other experiment and it will give significant or original finding, you can just publish those preliminary results as short communication. The other types of manuscript, it's case report. So mostly case report, it's for medical field and where the medical doctors or researchers, they just report one case study about genetic topic or pathology topic or whatever. The fourth type, proceeding paper, usually it's paper or even proceeding abstract published in after conference, presented at conference. So some conference, they request not just only abstract, they request also whole paper. We call it proceeding paper. Letter to editor, this is another types of articles or manuscripts. So what is that? Letter to editors, if you are expert in the field and you read a manuscript, published work, and you have an issue with that work, so if you want to raise either technical or scientific question about that work, you can write a letter to the editor, and usually most of the editors, they publish this manuscript. And then the fifth types of manuscripts is commentary. So commentary, I'll show you one example here. It's to express your personal opinion about scientific topic, like the trending in certain field or whatever. And finally, the editorial. Editorial, mostly it's written by the editor. If you are editor, you can write manuscript, we call it editorial. Let me just show you commentary published by one of my colleagues. Yep, it's here. So this is commentary published in Science. Do you know the impact factor of Science? Science journal? Almost, I think this year it's 41, the impact factor. I'll explain about the impact factor after a while. So this commentary, it's written by Dr. Hilal after, if you remember, Trump has banned immigrants from certain countries. So Dr. Hilal just drafted a commentary about how this ban will affect the scientists and the researcher. And the title of this commentary, The America I Believe In. So he discussed that really this ban will affect the collaboration between the US scientists and the other scientists from the other part of the world. So this is example of commentary, and it could be published also in high impact factor journal. So those are the most important types of manuscript. Of course, if I ask which types of manuscripts will get more citation, and this is the good things also about to draft review during, especially for postgrad students, during your first 2 semesters review paper. Of course, it gets more cited as compared to articles or even as compared to conference paper. Because you know the narrative review or systematic review, it summarizes and critically appraise all the manuscript in that field or in that topic. I think this is the last slide in the introduction part. So may I ask you questions, especially this question for PhD students, how many manuscripts you read per year? Just think about it. But based on this illustration, scientists in 1977, they read about 100 to 50. Then it increased a bit, and recently it decreased. So this illustration, it's statistics, it's up to 2012. But for my group, for my students, usually I ask them, it should be an average at least 100 articles per year, which is equals to 8 to 10 articles per month. Why they have to read? And it should be updated articles. Why you have, as researcher or postgrad students or even academic staff, to read updated articles in order to update you about the recent publication in the field. And statistics, it shows that this is since 2014, each 9 years, the literature, it doubles, which means nowadays, I think almost each month, each year, about million articles published, of course, in different fields. So in your field, perhaps thousands of articles. So there is a lot, so much to read, but you have so little time to read. But of course, at least, as I told you, you have to read between 50 to 100 in your field. So how you can overcome this problem that you have too many articles published monthly and yearly? Of course, you should optimize your search term. And you should know, first, you have to identify your topic. And then you have to use relevant keywords when you search in the databases like PubMed, Google Scholar, or even Scopus, Web of Science, Science Direct, Elsevier, whatever. You have to search using relevant keywords. And then if too much articles appear, you have to narrow your search by adding Boolean and it should be capitalized. But if just little articles appear, then you have to broaden your topic by adding or operator. I'll explain that. Just I'll give you example, because again, this is another workshop or seminar, how to search the literature. It's not related how to write the manuscript, but actually it's the first part. When you start writing, thinking to how to write a manuscript, you have to search the literature. So I'll just explain PubMed. I'm not quite sure how many of the audience from biomedical background. Usually those from biomedical background, they have to use the PubMed. So in the PubMed, we have what we call it MASH. MASH stands for medical subject headings. And also even for Scopus and Web of Science, Science Direct, they have also subject heading. And those subject headings, if you click the medical MASH in PubMed, you will get all the alternative keywords. Like if you are searching about diabetes or obesity or cancer, it will give you the other alternative words for cancer, tumor, malignancy, whatever. But of course, if you are expert in the field, you should know the alternative keywords. And when you search, there is some tools you can use it for most of the database. Like if you want to search just only, this is example for PubMed, Untitled. You can just, after your search, you can add the word, the letter TI, which means only articles that it contains this word, it will appear. EB stands for abstract, and so on and so forth. Also, you can use, this is also can be applied also for Science Direct or Web Science. If you add this little asterisk, it will retrieve. So if I want to search for both diabetic and diabetes, so I just add this little asterisk after T, so it will appear both. This is good actually if you want to retrieve both British spelling and UK spelling, or if there is alternative. So of course the Boolean, it should be capitalized when you add Boolean like and, or not. So this is just simple example. If I want to studies about how to prevent diabetes mellitus, so you can add the word prevent and with little asterisk after T, so it will retrieve both prevent, preventive, prevention, all the synonyms for prevent. Then I want just to search in title, only articles that it contains in in the title, prevent or prevention or preventive, and then Boolean and then diabetic. So I just add little asterisk after T, and then I search in title. So perhaps you can try that in different databases. Of course, if your keywords, it contains more than one keywords, you can add the quotation mark. So this quotation mark, it will just retrieve the articles that it contains all the three keywords. And most of the database, including Web Science, Science Direct, and even Google Scholar, by the way, it contains filters. So you can use those filters to filtrate, to get just only articles in English, or in certain duration. Since there is too many articles, you want just only articles published in your field in 2020. So you can use the filters to get only articles published in 2020. And there is many filters in most of databases. So those tools, it will help you to just get the articles relevant to your topic. So you can just read, since there is too many articles, you can just read those articles, updated articles published in your area. And as you are aware, I'm sure you are aware that there is too many databases, not just only PubMed. We have Scopus, we have Web of Science, Science Direct, PubMed, we have Springer, we have Wiley, we have too many databases. And also we have journal websites. For thesis, ProQuest. Again, are you familiar with ProQuest? Anyone of the audience try to use the ProQuest? If you want to get thesis, just go to the ProQuest. Also, we have website for conference proceeding, for gray literature to get the negative results and those published in the gray literature, not in the journals. You can search the Google Scholar or Midna. And this illustration just to show you the difference between different databases. We have, this is Web of Science, and this is the Scopus. So there is about, again, this illustration is a bit old. Nowadays, I think more than 12,000 journals under Web of Science. And under Scopus, more than 20,000 journals. So not all journals indexed in Scopus is indexed in Web of Science. About only 11,000 plus journals, sorry, they are in both, indexed by both Web Science and Science Direct. So in our university, as I told you, University of Malaya, the PhD students, they have to publish 2 articles before graduation. It should be in Web of Science. So they have to select the journals under Web of Science. Of course, before you start also writing your manuscript, you have to know what is the important guidelines in your field. So if you are writing systematic review or meta-analysis, what's the guideline that you have to read before you start drafting your manuscript? It's PRISMA guideline. If your manuscript, it's RCT, randomized control trials, the guideline is CONSORT. If it's your study is observational study, STROP, and there is different guideline. If your study is animal studies, it's ARRIVE. And at this website, I provide here the link of website, Equator. So perhaps you can check this website. I'll show you. There is different also. Let me just show you. Yeah, there is different guidelines here. You can click. So if your articles, economic evaluation, or quality improvement, or qualitative research. So this is the guideline that you have to use. So, but of course, for other types of article, you have to follow the author guidelines for that journal, the journal that you want to publish your work. Okay. Another question here. Who deserves to be author and be acknowledged in the topic or issue? Some they request to add their name as authors, but actually to be added in the author list, they should have contribution, real contribution, either during the experimental design, collecting of data, analysis of data, even interpretation and final writing and final approval of the manuscript. So if someone just has done simple technical work for you without doing the analysis, so if this person or researcher analyze the data, help in drafting them or reading the manuscript, in this case, can be added as author. If someone just help you in data collection or language editing, it should be acknowledged, should not be added as author. And of course, the corresponding author usually here in UM usually is the supervisor. So he's the one who usually, after the publication, after the manuscript will be accepted, he is the one who the other researcher or the journal or the audience, they contact if they have any inquiry. Here we go. So I'll start now, go to different sections of the manuscript. So the manuscript, it contains, after the title, abstract, introduction, methods or methodology, results, and then discussion. So the introduction part is to answer this question. Why did you do the study? Because some students or researchers, they mix between what to write in the introduction and what to write in the discussion. So introduction, it's to answer only this question. Why did you do the study? What's the gap in the literature? What's the significance of your study? What's the rationale of your study? While the methods or the methodology is to answer, what did you do? What you have done, the experiment, the procedure, and in the result, what did you find, the findings, the data that you have collected. And then the discussion is to answer, how does your study contributes to the knowledge, to the field. And by the way, have you noticed the introduction here? It's triangle, but the tips of the head of the triangle, it's at the bottom, while in discussion, it's triangle, but the head of the triangle, it's at the top. Have you noticed that? Does it gives it gives you something? It explains something? Yes, actually, this is the way how to write the introduction. So you usually introduction, when you start writing introduction, you will start with broaden statement, and then you keep focusing or try to narrow your paragraph until you reach the aim of the study. While for discussion, you will start from really the most important message from your study, the significant finding. And then after that, you will explain the other significant or non-significant results, and then you compare your result with others, and then what's the limitation, what's the impact. So you start from very focused and narrow, then you just broaden your explanation. So it's the other way around. I'll explain that. So this is the general structure of the manuscript according to Emirate, or introduction, methodology, result, and discussion. So in the introduction, mostly it starts with general background about the topic, and then what's the current state of the field. So you have to explain just explain the published studies about your topic in order to justify why you have to publish this manuscript. And then after that, what's the problem in the field or gap in the literature or whatever, and it ends with aim, with the aim or hypothesis of the research. And after that, the methodology. So in the methodology, of course, you will add the materials, the if you have samples, size calculation, the participant, if you have then the different methodology you use, and then the methodology will end with statistical analysis. What statistics you have used, what methods, and all of that. Then the results section. So mostly in the results section, it contains the tables, figures, and illustrations. So you have to just summarize the finding. And then in the discussion, you will start, as I told you, with the major conclusion or the most important findings, and then other case supporting finding, and then relevance of your finding to the literature, which means you compare your findings with the published studies, and the limitation of your study. Don't worry about reporting the limitation of study and also reporting the negative results. It's important to report that in the discussion. And then you end your article with conclusion and the implication or impact of your article and the future directions and the recommendation. This is the manuscript different section, and the structure of the manuscript. When we read it, it contains title, abstract, introduction, methods, result, and discussion. But when we write the manuscript, which section we start? Do we start by writing the abstract, title? What do you think? Actually, we don't start. This is the perfect way of drafting a manuscript. You should start with writing the methodology section, because you know already you have the methods Then after the method section, the results. So you just add after the method all the data, figures, tables, and then briefly describe the results, and then the discussion. And after the discussion, you will go back to the introduction, and I'll explain why in the next few slides. And at the end, you will draft or write the abstract and the title. So you see the other way around. When you write the writing order, it's not the same as the general structure of the manuscript. Now I'll go through each section, how to write different sections in the manuscript. I'll start by the title. So actually, the title is the main advertisement of your work. It should be catchy. It should reflect the whole content of your manuscript. It should be short and focused. And most of the journals, they have restriction. The title shouldn't be more than 10 to 20 words. So you have to read the author's guideline in the journal. And the most important for the title, most of the journals, they use the titles and the keywords to index your article. That's why the other researcher, when they search for this topic, some articles will appear first, other articles after that. Why? Because they have really good representative keywords in the title and in the keywords. And it's okay to repeat the keywords that you use in the title, to repeat it, to use it again in the keywords. Okay, so it's used for the title, used for indexing of your articles. And try in the title to avoid words like a study of, or investigation into, or observation on. Just go direct to the title, and try to avoid using abbreviation or jargon word. Usually, we don't prefer to have abbreviation in the title. How you can write the title? Here, there is 3 different formats, and it depends on you. We have the question format. This is example of question format. Can ischemic preconditioning improve prognosis after coronary artery bypass surgery? So it's question format. The same topic, but using another format, which is statement of conclusion. Ischemic preconditioning improves prognosis after coronary artery bypass. So as you can see here, it's statement of conclusion, and they use the present tense. And mostly American researchers, they use this way of drafting the title. The other format, it's variable or descriptive way. So here, prognostic effects or evaluation of ischemic preconditioning in coronary artery bypass patients. This is another way, and usually British researchers, they prefer this way. So you have to check also the journal, by the way, in order to see, is it which format mostly they use. So usually American researchers, as I told you, they prefer this statement of conclusion, the direct effects, and in the present tense. And it's okay to add the method that you have used, especially if it's RCT or if it's case study or whatever in the title. That's it for the title. Let's move to the keywords. So most of the journals, they request about 4 to 6 keywords for your manuscript. And again, those keywords, it's used for indexing. So together with the title, the journals, they use the keywords to index your article. So if you use appropriate keywords, it will appear really fast when the researcher, they search the engine. Okay, so for abstracts, abstract, it should be short, and most of the journals, they have limitation in number of words. Most of the journals, they request it should be less than 200 or 250. You have to know that the abstract should stand on its own, which means if the reader, they just read the title and abstract, they will understand the whole project or whole article, because most of the time the abstract, title and abstract, it's the only part that will be read in your article. And it's based on the abstract and title, the researcher or the reader, they will decide if they will carry on with the reading or not. In the abstract, you should not overestimate or exaggerate your finding. So just claim what based on the data. You should have supporting data for your claim. And then it should be written, as I explained in the structure, last part. Don't start with the abstract. You should have the result and the discussion. So it should be telling, matching with the result. Okay. And then, as I just mentioned, the title and abstract should be representing your article. And there is two types of abstract based on the journals. We have structured abstract, which should contain subheading, including background, aim of study, methodology, results, and discussion. And we have unstructured abstract, which have the same flow, but without these subheadings. Of course, in the abstract, you cannot cite any reference, so no citation. You will not add any tables or figures. Okay, so this is the abstract. It should start with context, which is mostly background or problem statement or the rationale of your study, and then the aim of the study. And then in the methods part of the abstract, it should have the most important materials that you have used. And then in the results, you will report the significant finding, and then you will end the abstract with the conclusion, with the impact of your study, with the recommendation. Have you heard about graphical abstract and highlights? It's different, by the way, from the abstract. Some journals, especially under Science Direct or Elsevier, they request to have graphical abstract. I'll show you an example after this. So graphical abstract, it's visual summary for the finding of this research article. And it helps people to understand the article at a glance. And then also you can use also this graphical abstract to promote your work by just posting this graphical abstract in the Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever, with the link of the articles. And the other thing that I want to emphasize here, some journals, they request highlights. So what's the highlights? It's again different than graphical abstract. It's the main finding in bullet format, in point formats. But some journals, they request that, not all journals. Let me show you example of graphical abstract and examples of highlights. So, yeah. So this, so this is examples for highlights. So you can see it's in bullet format. And it's the main finding of the article. So some journals, they request to have highlights at the beginning before the abstract. So it's just bullet point of the important finding of your articles. And this is the graphical abstract. So this is article under Elsevier. So they request also to have what they call it graphical abstract. So kind of illustration to summarize the whole article. So get benefit of those things if the journal, they request those things. Okay, after that, after the abstract, let's move to the introduction. Let me just check if there is something in the chat, but for question, we'll make it at the end. We'll, introduction. For the introduction, introduction section in the manuscript, you will start with a brief background in order to explain what's the gap in the knowledge or significance of your study. And then after that, the problem being investigated, why, to answer the question, why you have conducted this study. So which means, or in other words, the rationale of the study. And then after that, you have to summarize the current state of the field. So what's the current situation of that field in order to say, this is the gap in the literature. That's why we propose, or we introduce this work. And then after you report the rationale and the current state of the field, you will mention the findings of the other that you are challenging, and then the introduction part will end with the aims. So you can see it's triangle, and the triangle ends with the aim or hypothesis, the hypothesis of your study or the question, or most of the time it's the aim. That's why the last paragraph in the introduction usually ends with, therefore the study intends or aims to blah, blah, blah. So what's the common mistake that I think, based on my experience with my students, or even as a reviewer? And by the way, fortunately, I had experience to be author, reviewer, and also editor. So when I speak, it's from the three different perspectives: as author, as reviewer, and even as editor. So those some common mistake I have noticed when I review manuscript in the introduction section. Sometimes the idea are not logically organized, which means to me, it seems that the authors or the researcher, they don't understand what's the introduction, what they have to write in the introduction part. Actually, the introduction, they should focus to answer this question: why study needs to be done? Which means the rationale and the significance of the study, gap in the literature. So here they are not they should not compare their studies, their findings with other findings. They should not introduce something else. The other mistake, it's too long. Some, they write the introduction as literature review. It's not. It should be short and it should be clear. So how to solve this problem? Keep focus. And then the other mistake, that topics in the introduction is not matching with the result and the discussion. So how to solve this problem? You should write the introduction the last. Do you remember the ordering of writing? Don't start writing with the introduction, because you will not have the idea of the result and the discussion. But after you draft the method, result, and discussion, now you have all the contents. You can draft your introduction just based on the result and the discussion. Also, the other mistake in the introduction, they cite very old reference. And actually, especially, you can cite, by the way, all the reference in the methodology, because the the methodology part, perhaps it contains methods, old method, or in the discussion, because you are comparing your result with other results. But in the introduction, the reviewer or the editor, they want to see updated reference less than 5 years. So to solve this one, in the introduction part, you have to to cite recent or updated reference. And then the other mistake, cited studies, geographically biased. So be internationalized. So try to cite articles from different parts of the world to make it a bit more general. So that's it for the introduction. Let's move to the method section. So in the method section, usually where you write all the methods and the materials, and it should be in detail. Why? In order for other researcher to replicate your work. So your article or your work should be reproducible. And most of the journals, they request to have subheading for that, for your methodology. And the flow of the methodology, it should be based on the result that you'll explain later on. Sometimes it's good to add just flowchart to summarize the experimental design, or even table if you have grouping or whatever. It will help also the reader or other researcher to understand your topic. Let me just use the laser pointer. In the methodology, you have to cite and acknowledge the methods that you have used. But so in this case, if you just cite previous method, no need to explain all the details of the methodology, because it's valid, well-known method. But if you have done any modification, you have to state clearly what types of modification you have added. But if it's new method, in this case, you have to explain all the details of the methods. So it depends, actually. In the methodology section, you have to add all the equipment that you have used, all the reagents or chemicals or whatever, the source or database, the source of those. And then if it's human study or animal study, you have to add the ethical statement or ethical approval reference number, because most of the journal, if it's human or animal study, they won't accept your article unless the ethics of this work has been approved. You should also explain, if it's human study, the criteria or the eligibility criteria for selecting your participant. And the last part of your methods, it should contain the statistical analysis. What test you have used, what significant level you used. And in the methodology section, which tense usually you have to use? It's past tense. So I'll explain the tenses in the next few slides. Comparing between active and passive voice, what do you think? Which voice you have to use for the method section? Now, my question is about the method section. Here are two examples. So as passive voice, all participants were interviewed. Or in active, to determine the efficacy of the program, we interviewed all participants. So this is active and this is passive. So which voice you have to use? It depends actually on the journal. Most of the British journals, they prefer the passive, and most of the American, they prefer the active. But again, it's not general statement. You have to go and check the journal, you check the author guideline, and you have to download at least 3 to 5 manuscripts published in that journal, and look how other researchers, they report their methodology. Do they use passive? And by the way, most of the journals, they use passive voice. Okay, I think this is kind of repeating. So of course, don't forget in the methodology what was studied. So all the materials, the instrument, the database, and how the study was done. So all the procedure of your method, and then the data analysis, including event quantification model, statistical analysis, p-value, and all of those. For the results section, let's move to the results section. So in the results section, actually you present or summarize your finding, and it should be clear and logic. And the big mistake, most of the researchers, they do in the result, they interpret, they discuss their result in the result section. Actually, the interpretation or discussion should be in the discussion section. It shouldn't be in the result, except there is exception. Some journals in their structure format, some journals, the discussion with the discussion section is combined with the result section. So altogether, they are one section, result with the discussion. So in this case, yes, you can report your result and discuss your result in the same paragraph. But if the journal have different section, so in the result section, don't interpret your result, just report your result. The sequence, it should be based on the flow or sequence of your tables, your data, your figures. And don't forget, you have to emphasize the most important significant findings. Start with the significant finding. And then this is another mistake most of the researchers and postgrad students, they do. They don't cite the figures and tables in the text. So you have to cite all the figures, all the tables in text, okay? And then each figures, it should have legend. So in this legend, actually, it should be self-explanatory, which means in the legend, you have to explain what statistical test you have used. You have to define or spell out all abbreviation in the graph. So if you have symbols or abbreviation, it should be explained or defined in the legend of the figure. So how to present your data? For paragraph, you will just summarize your data, but how to present? Is it in table format or graph format or whatever? This is general rules. So if it's specific numbers, your data, it's numerical, you can use table format. Okay, especially if there is multiple 10 groups or more. If it's time trending or relationship between two things, in this case, the line graph. If it's comparison between two variables, in this case, bar chart can be used if the data is normally distributed, if you use parametric analysis. But if it's not normally distributed, if your data is non-parametric, in this case, you have to present your data as box plot. If it's proportion, percentage, in this case, the best presentation using pie chart. If it's process, of course, you have to use flow chart or flow diagram. Oops. Okay. And if it's appearance, like you have histopathology or photo, in this case, of course, photograph, image, drawing, map, also sometimes. So this is how to present your data. Let's move to the discussion part. So discussion part, again, it's triangle, but you should start with the summary of the findings. So very focused summary of the findings, especially the significant finding, and then relevance. After that, you have to report other finding, of course, and then the relevance of your finding to other studies by stating the similarities and the differences between your finding and the published studies. Then you have to report unexpected results. Don't worry about, as I told you, about the negative results. Then you have to report the limitation of your study, and the discussion part will can be end with implication of your study. The most mistake that researchers they do, they restate the result here. So here, when I said summary of finding, it means not to repeat the result, just to state our finding of this indicates, then explain. So it's discussion of the significant finding. So it should be interpretation or discussion. Okay. You can discuss here general or specific conclusion or statement based on the findings. Also, you should link this section, the discussion, to the introduction. So it should be matched. So in the introduction, you have question, research question, or you have hypothesis or the aim. So now to answer this research question, it should be answered in the discussion. Okay. I think I have covered that. So in the discussion, you have to also mention the similarities and difference between your study and published studies. Also state the negative results and the limitation. Also in the discussion, you have to suggest the future directions, the further experiment that you would recommend or suggest for other researchers. Also, the other mistake that I have noticed researchers, sometimes they have to do, they introduce new topic in the discussion. Don't do that. The discussion should be based on the result, and it should be matched to the introduction. So don't introduce new topic in the discussion. And then discussion should explain, last part, how your research has moved the knowledge forward, what it adds to our knowledge. How to discuss the limitation of the study. I think this is an example I have noticed most of the researchers. I emphasize that don't worry about reporting negative result or about reporting the limitation of your study. But sometimes the way how to report those limitation. Can you see the two examples here? The limitation of this study is they have small sample size. So sometimes based on this limitation, maybe the journal, they would reject the articles. But you can see how they, both ways of reporting this limitation. So the first statement, they add the bad news, which is the limitation here. Oops. The limitation, which is small sample size, as the main clause in the stress position. So they said, although our survey demonstrates that potential depression is common, the study was limited by its small sample size. This is not good way to report your limitation. The good way is to start with, in the subordinate clause at the start, with just short paragraph about the bad news, and then add the good news. The long main clause, it should contain the stress. This is the main clause, the stress position, the good news. So you see the alternative way of reporting the limitation. Although the study was limited by its small sample size, our survey demonstrates that women commonly cite experiencing signs, blah, blah, blah. So the very long statement. So this is just only tips how you can report the limitation of your study. Let's move to the conclusion, which is last part of your manuscript. So the mistakes that most of the researchers they do when they draft their manuscript or when they submit their manuscript, they overestimate or they claim something in the introduction is not based on that is not supported by data. So don't claim or add any claim in the conclusion unless you have supportive data for that claim. So don't overestimate. Okay. The results also should, so the message here, the results should directly support your conclusion. In the conclusion also, you can add the application of your research, you can add the impact, you can suggest future directions or recommendation. Also, you can advise the researcher what's the next step. It can be added in the conclusion or in the last part of the discussion. This is just an ideal example of conclusion. It should contain the main conclusion, then the key findings, the implication or impact of your research, and then the future directions or recommendation, and the last part, the importance or significance. But don't worry about that. You can have just one or two elements. The most important, I think, the conclusion, then the impact, and then future directions. After the conclusion, you have to add the acknowledgements. So I have mentioned who deserve to be in the acknowledgement. Those, they just help you in collecting few data without interpretation or help you in some technical thing or whatever. And then most of the journals, they will request to report conflict of interest. If you have financial or non-financial conflict of interest, you should report that. It's very important, especially with us in the medical field. If our research supported by fund from pharmaceutical industry. So in this case, we have to report that we have financial, that our project financially supported by this pharmaceutical industry, because there is kind of conflict of interest, okay? So most of the journals, they will request this statement to say the authors declare no conflict of interest. But if you have conflict of interest, either financially or non-financially, you should state that, report that, remember. Otherwise, it will consider misconduct and it will affect on your reputation. I'll explain that later on. References. So references, you are aware that all the research is built on the previous published work. So you have to acknowledge the published work. But when you write your introduction, if it's common knowledge, no need to cite this common knowledge. But if it's you are reporting incidents or reporting experiments or data, you have to, or in the methods you are using or citing reference, citing methods, you have to acknowledge. You have to acknowledge the source. Okay, we have tools. Luckily, we have tools. I remember during my PhD 20 years back, we don't have this tools like EndNote and Mendeley. So we did that all referencing, especially for thesis. It's kind of really hard work to do the referencing. But luckily nowadays we have the EndNote and Mendeley and other tools to do that. I'm not quite sure which tools or which software are you using for referencing. Is it there in India? Is it EndNote or Mendeley, most of you? Okay. Then for referencing, how you know the style? It's you have to go to the guide of the author. Is there any problem with the sound? With the audio?
No, sir. Everything is okay.
Okay, great. So for reference, how to know the style? If already you have selected the journals, so in this case, you have to go to the guide for the authors in that journal and just follow the style. You can, most of the journals, they even add link for the style where you can just install the link into or add it into your EndNote. The other mistake that I have noticed the researcher, of course, when you cite the article, if it's in the middle, it will appear inside brackets. But if you start your statement with the author, like blah, blah, the author, year reported or suggested, the brackets shouldn't be on the whole the author's name with the year. It should be on the only the year. This is in case if you started your sentence with the author in order to say reported or suggested or whatever. Here in University of Malaya, we use the for thesis APA 6th edition as style for thesis, and each journal they have their own. If you open EndNote, you will find hundreds of style. So try to use the style based on the journal. Linking words. I have covered most of all the sections of the articles, but I think this part is important. Can you imagine? I have a question for you here. Can you imagine building without cement? So linking words, it's kind of cement for that building. So I have noticed some researchers they use when they want to add addition in the same sentence or same paragraph, they just add also and also. No, try to use other alternative linking words. Furthermore, in addition, additionally, moreover, you have alternatives. So here I listed in the sequence. Some when they describe their methodology, they just say then. No, try to say first, next, third, next, finally, after that, before. So try to use alternative linking words. So here I have listed few linking words for different, even when you contrast in the discussion, you can use some of those alternatives. And here also some other alternative keywords for different things. Actually, I shared the slides with the organizing committee, so perhaps after the session, they can share the slides with you, so you can go through those linking words later on. So I want to say here, there is some silly mistakes I have noticed when I review the manuscript. Really, to me, typo mistake is considered really silly mistake. Why? Because nowadays we have the word, we have the language correction tools in the Word or program that submit your manuscript. It has, I'm not talking now about grammar, I'm talking about spelling typo mistake. It shows that you don't care. So it's really silly mistake. When the manuscript, the word counts in the abstract or in the full text, it exceeds limits. To me, it shows that the researcher, they don't read the guideline. The guidelines state the abstract should be 100 words or 200, you should stick with that guideline. Page count, using abbreviation that are unknown or undefined. So try to use just only well-known or abbreviation or symbols, and you have to define those abbreviation for first time. So WHO, define it first and then use it. If you don't follow the instruction of the author's guideline, also consider as a kind of silly mistake. All the time for your manuscript, be original. And if you some information in your manuscript you got it from elsewhere, you have to acknowledge the source. Okay. Also, some other advice. This is general tips actually for the manuscript. It's not for certain section. Remember, each sentence or each paragraph first should have one idea. So in the same paragraph, don't discuss two or too many ideas. Try to make each paragraph to have one message, and it should be a bit short. Try for sentence, this is about sentence, try to have it short rather than long sentence. Try to keep it simple. Don't use jargon words. Try to use also, it depends on the journal, the active writing. Some journals, they prefer that. For tenses, which tense you have to use? Let me go to the next slide. It will explain that tense. So it's based on the part that you are writing. I'll explain later on here in the different section, but if you are referring to tables, findings, graphs, it should be in present tense. So table 1 shows, not showed, not past tense, it should be present tense. Findings of our study suggest or indicate. the result demonstrate. So it's present tense. If you are referring to a data table, should be present tense. So when to use present tense, it should be mostly in the introduction section and in the discussion. In the introduction section, if it's fact or general information, you have to use present tense. But if it's you are reporting previous studies, you have to use present perfect. So again, for discussion and introduction, it could be present tense or present perfect based on the consequence. So example here, if it's facts like hydrogels are, so present tense because fact. But if you are reporting previous study, it should be present tense, present perfect, sorry. For referring to in the introduction, referring to previous studies, if in the introduction, present perfect, as I mentioned, has been shown. Also, if you are also referring to your data or your finding in the study, we have shown that. So it's present perfect. So it depends. Mostly it's present perfect for the introduction and the discussion. For the methods, mostly, and the result, it's past simple. You have to report your methodology procedure using past tense. We used, if it's in active voice, we used RT-PCR. If it's in passive voice, PCR was used. So it depends on which voice. This is the active and passive, when to use it. Example here. So as I told you, as general rule, but you have to check the journal. British journal, they prefer passive mode. Example, a review of 50 cases was carried out, or we investigated, the manuscript, the mechanism, regulation enzyme activity were investigated. So it's passive. While for active, mostly by American journal, we conducted a review of 50 cases. So it's another way how to report your methodology. In the active here, another example, we investigated. So to me, the active voice, it's more simple, direct, but the cons of using active, it's repeating we. Of course, for the manuscript, you cannot say I, because usually in the manuscript, there is more than one author, you and your supervisor. So you have to use we. So the disadvantages of using active, it's to repeat the word we, while in passive, you don't. But anyway, you have to check, as I told you, download 3 or 4 to 5 articles from that journal and look how other researchers they use. Is it mostly they use active or passive? And if you know if the journal, mostly it's American, mostly as I told you, they use active voice. For abbreviation, we have different abbreviation and acronyms and initialism. Of course, you can use them, but remember to define them. Okay, it's important to define them or spell them out for first time, and then you can reuse just only the symbol, the abbreviation. Punctuation, does it matter? What do you think? Does punctuation, it makes difference? Because also I have noticed as a reviewer or editor, there is too many mistakes in punctuation. Can you just read those two statements to know the difference? So the first statement, women without hair men is nothing. While the other statement, women without hair, men is nothing. Is it too different? You see, punctuation only, it makes different meaning. It changed the meaning completely. So be careful when you use that punctuation. British with the Americans, the USA spelling, it's important. Again, if you are targeting American journal, you have to use American spelling. If you are targeting British journal, or look at the author guidelines, or as I told you, get some articles published under that journal. And really, to me, this is kind of silly mistake when you are not consistent. You use British and American spelling in the same article, because it's easy nowadays. In the Word, just select the language from the beginning before you start drafting your articles. Just select the language. It should be UK or US. So then the Word, it will tell you if there is a problem with your mistake in the spelling or no. Numbers. how to write the numbers. I think this is technical issue. And by the way, when I'm trying to make this seminar, it's more to I cover the technical issue that I think my students, the researcher, they have mistake. Or I have noticed when I read or I review the manuscript. So for the number, first, when you start your sentence, don't start with a numeral, the number. It should be either written. So if you want to start your statement with numbers, it should be written in letters, or you have to add word before that, like totally 506 patients were recruited. Then the other tips, if the number's in the middle of the sentence, if the number between 1 to 9, it's better not to write it as numeral. It should be written in letters. If it's 1 to 9, so 2, it should be written 6, 8. But there is exception here. If the number has unit, like temperature or 3 ml, 10 minutes, 2 years, it should be in numeral. It shouldn't be written. So this is the exception for numbers between 1 to 9. If the number's more than 10, in the middle of the sentence, it should be written as numeral 12. It shouldn't be written. But there is exception here. If it's at the beginning of the sentence, you can. It's better not to start your sentence with number. Okay, this is for the numbers. And then just general tips, try to avoid unnecessary sentence. As example, at a concentration of 2. It's well known, 2 grams per liter this unit, it means concentration. Or at 37, no need to write the temperature, because we know degrees Celsius is for temperature. So no point to add the word temperature or whatever. So perhaps you can go through this slide later on. It's just only a few tips how you can get rid of important words. Okay, then the good things, as I told you, for referencing, we have different tools. So for bibliography or for referencing, we have different software like EndNote, we have Mendeley, we have Wizfolio. Here we use mostly EndNote. And the good things about EndNote, even Mendeley, it first help you to get all the articles from the database. So most of the database, including Web Science, Science Direct, they have the, you can get the articles from their website using EndNote. And then those tools or softwares, it help you to remove the duplicates. You can have different folders, so it group your articles. Because when you start your PhD, maybe you'll start with few articles, but after 3 years, 4 years, you will end up with, let's say, thousands of articles. So you should arrange them in groups. You can EndNote, I'm familiar with EndNote, you can annotate, add annotation in the PDF file. Also, at the end of the day, you can cite the reference using the EndNote. And the good things about those reference management tools, including EndNote, when your manuscript rejected by the first journal, it's just only, and you want to submit to another journal, now you have to change the style. In order to change the style, using EndNote, it's just only one click. But without those tools, you have to rewrite your reference based on the new style. Those some tools for grammar checker. All of us, you know, we are not native speakers, so it's good to have one of those. Some of them, it's free of charge. Some of them you have to pay for it, but it will help you to improve. But if not, it's better to send your manuscript for language proof reading to most of the journals nowadays or databases. They have this service. So those are few with the links. Perhaps you can go through them later on. And for plagiarism, have you heard about that? the similarity, because this is another problem we face when we review, or as editor, I notice similarity. Some manuscript when published, the percentage of plagiarism or similarity is more than 50%. It's not acceptable because it indicates kind of just copy paste from the literature. You have to rephrase, even if you acknowledge and you cite the source, but you have to rephrase that paragraph. So here in Malaysia, in University of Malaya, we use Turnitin software. I'm not quite sure in your institute which software or which platform are you using to check the plagiarism. I have listed another tools here for you. Perhaps you can later on go through them. Some of them, they are free of charge, but they are not really, the quality of those platforms not really good as Turnitin. Turnitin really is good platform. So if you are familiar with Turnitin, it will give you something like this. So this is the percentage here in UM. And by the way, I'm editor for ISI journals and other journals. So usually we don't accept if the similarity more than 20 or 25, it depends. And for thesis, it should be less than 20 or 25. And so here you can, after you upload your manuscript, that Turnitin, it will give you the percentage of similarity like this. 23, so this is 3%. I'm not quite sure. Sorry, it's small font if you can see it. But also when you open the file, it will highlight the sentence that it's same from other sources. So this sentence is same like same or taken from the source 15. So it will give you all the sources that the sentence has taken from. So this is the final report of Turnitin. The total over all similarity, it's 18, so it's acceptable. And this 18, it's 15, it's similar to internet source, and internet source including the thesis. But publication, it's just only articles. Okay, and then it will give you the individual similarity, the similarity to individual articles. So the first article is 3%, second article 1%. And by the way, general rules for most of the journals, the overall should be less than 20 or 25, and each individual source, it should be less than 3. So it's not acceptable to have here 20, and the first article, the first source is 10 or 15. Is considered also, it shows that most of the paragraph has taken from this source. So plagiarism, it's considered kind of misconduct, and there is different types of plagiarism. It's not just only copy paste. I have covered now if you just copy paste from the other source, but self plagiarism, if you publish article, then you reuse the tables or graphs. There is here there is question how to safely reuse your work. You cannot simply reuse it. You have especially with there is copyright issue, so you have to get permission from the publisher and from the journal, and if it's paragraph, you have to paraphrase it. This is either intentionally or unintentionally, it's not acceptable. But there is high intentionally plagiarism and misconduct, what we call it ghost authorship. And this is really kind of misconduct when certain group, they conduct the research and then they just added one author who has nothing to do with this article. He or she, they just paid them or whatever. This is, we call it ghost authorship. So all the authors, they should have a real contribution. Okay, so I want to emphasize about the scientific misconduct, because it's important for you, especially those, the postgrad students and the junior researcher. First, you have to remember to report the conflict of interest. So if there is any, disclose this, the conflict of interest. If there is any kind of conflict of interest, you have to report that. Then try to avoid plagiarism, because it's kind of misconduct. And then the other important thing, some students, in order to save time, they submit the manuscript to two journals at the same time for them to save time. It's not acceptable. Ethically, it's considered misconduct, because can you imagine if both journals, they send to the same reviewer, they will report the reviewers to the journal, then they will They will put you, add you and your supervisor and all authors in the blacklist. So don't do it. And then the other types of misconduct, it's either fabrication or falsification. What's the difference between fabrication and falsification? Fabrication, it's simply making up data. So there is no research, no experiment, they just make up the data. We call it fabrication. While falsification, they manipulate the data. There is data, but it's negative. So they play with the data. So they manipulate the data. This kind of really misconduct. And then the last types of misconduct, salami slicing, salami slicing. I'm not quite sure if you heard about this term. So salami slicing, it's simply you have one research and then you try to publish this project in 2 or 3 articles. If you have 2 really separate objectives, it's okay to publish. But if it's just only one objective and you try to split this work into 2 articles, consider also of misconduct, but it's not severe as fabrication and other types. Why I am emphasizing the misconduct after I explain how to write different parts of your articles, because of this. Have you heard or seen any articles in the databases with this stamp, restricted? It's really, it affects the reputation of the authors of the falsification or whatever. Okay, so be careful. And actually, if your article in Hong Kong and China, they commit suicide because their articles at the end of the day are restricted. So be careful. Misconduct, it's important thing here. Okay, so this is the first part of my seminar, which is about how to write the manuscript. I'll move to the second part, how to select now the journal. And I'll try to go a bit faster because we are running out of time. So finding right journal is very important because you want your findings or your research to reach the target audience. It will not go to multidisciplinary journal or whatever. Again, I repeat, you have to submit your paper to 1 journal at a time. Then what's the criteria now to how you can select the right journals? First, you should know as expert what's the most important journals in your field. If you are not quite sure, check the reference in your article itself. It will give you some indication what's the most important or most common journals in your field. Then after you check the reference, the other criteria to select, you have to list all of the journals in your area. You can check some of websites, databases like Web Science. It categorizes the journals, Web Science and Scopus, based on the categories for each area. Then the most important, when you select it, you should target your audience. So if your article is more to the IT, you should select IT journal. And then, of course, sometimes after you select all those, there is hundreds of journals under the same category. So what's the other criteria to select the journal? Some they look at the journal indexing, ranking of the journal, impact factor, and the matrix. So I'm not quite sure if you are familiar with those. So indexing here is important, which means this journal index in which database? Is it Web Science or Scopus? So as I told you here in UM, the PhD student should publish in ISI. The journal should be indexed in ISI. It's okay to be indexed in both ISI and Scopus, but if it's indexed in Scopus, it's not acceptable. So this is the criteria. This is for indexing. For ranking, the journals, they have either high rank. So I'll explain that in the next few slides. Is it tier 1 or Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4? And then each journal have impact factor and it has matrix. The other criteria, when you select, if you have too many alternative journals, perhaps you can look at the duration. If you are in hurry to publish your article, just download or get 5 articles or 10 articles published under that journal, and check the date of submission, then date of acceptance and date of publication. Most of the journals, they have between 2 to 10 months or 1 year sometimes. So if you are in dry or in high, it's better to go for the journal that it has duration within 2 months of acceptance. And then you have to check the scope of the journals, because if your article is review paper, some journals, they won't accept. So no point to submit your review paper to this journal. They just accept by invitation. And then you can check also the other criteria to select the journal performance of the review process and the publication timeline. And then the size and of print circulation, or how many issue per year this journal. Some journals, they have 12 issue per year. Some other journals, they have just 1 or 2. So of course, the acceptance rate usually for those, they have 12 issue, it will be a bit more. The acceptance and rejection rate, you can get those information, I'll show you after this, from the website databases. So some journals, they have just only 5% acceptance rate. So they reject 95%. So it's better to go for journals with 20% acceptance rate. So those different criteria, it's based on your situation, actually. I'm trying to list different criteria to select. You have 2 options. There is 2 types of journal, open access and subscribed journal. So if you have fund to pay for open journal, it's better to go for open journal. If you don't have money, it's better to go for subscribed journal. But here, you will not get the copyright from the journal. Then the most important, you have to read the aim and scope of the journal, because if your article is not under the aim or scope of this journal, no point again to submit to the journal. And last, you have to read the guide for the authors. We have 2 types of the journals. We have open access, we call it golden open access, and we have subscribed or what we call it green open access. So what's the difference between both? For open access, the public, they have free access, so anyone can access your articles, okay? While for the subscribe, the green open access, the public, they don't have the free access. Only those institutes, they have subscription to this database or this journal, but you can publish, or sorry, you can deposit the preprint. I'll explain what's preprint. You cannot, by the way, if you have your own website, like in LinkedIn or in the ResearchGate or even your university, you cannot post the full text if you published your articles and subscribed. You can post the preprint, which is the version that before you submit, before the reviewer, they add their comments. Okay, so for open access, of course, you have to, the authors, they have to pay the fees, while for subscribed, the reader and the institute, the subscriber, they have to pay for them. And there is hybrid journal. Nowadays, many journals, they have hybrid, which means they have open access and they have the subscribe. So when you submit, during the procedure of submission, they will ask you, do you want to go for open access or just submit as subscribed? So you have to select. Luckily, we have tools also. I mentioned many criteria how to select the journals, but we have tools. If you are not familiar with the field, we have tools, different databases, they have tools. It will give you a suggestion. What are the journals that you can target? So example here, Elsevier or Science Direct. There is website, just go through this website, the link. I don't have time now to show you, but just use this link. And then at the website, it will ask you, under Science Direct, it will ask for the title of your article and then abstract. And based on title and abstract, it will suggest different journals for you. So here I just added a random abstract with the title. So it will give you some data like this. So the first high matching journal, you see here 100% matching, is this journal. And it will give you some also information like the site score, the impact factor of this journal, if 3.7, the acceptance rate of this journal is 25, the time to first decision if they reject, or they will send it to the reviewer. So it's not 3 weeks to give you the comments. It's to either reject because it's not belong their scope, or to send it to the reviewer. And then time to publication. After acceptance, some journals, they need time for production. Then the second journal. And when you go to the list, the last one, you will notice the matching will be less and less. So this is one tool. Springer, they have another tool. So it's based on the database. This is the link for Springer. So just add again the title and the abstract, and then it will give you suggestion of list relevant journals. Web of Science, also they have the same tools. And this is the link, by the way, for this at Journal Citation Report. Again, it will ask you to add your title, abstract, and then it will suggest different journals. So this is another way if you don't have your own list. Okay, let's move to the journal impact factor. What does it mean? Because it reflects the reputation of the journal, it reflects the quality of the journal, of course. But it's one of the criteria to select the journal, but not all of the time. It's one of the 100 or 50 criteria. But how we calculate, or the journal's impact factor calculated? The impact factor for, let's say, 2018, how they calculate, it's based on the citation in 2018 for articles published in the previous 2 years, 2017 and 16, divided by the number of published articles in the last 2 years. So it's the number of citation and divided by the number of articles published. So if the journals published more articles as compared to the citation of that journal, it means the impact factor will be low. But if the journals get more citation as compared to the number of publication, the impact factor will be high. That's why most of the journals, they have high rejection rate. They want to publish less number of articles as compared to the number of citation that they get from other journals. Okay, and the impact factor in the Web of Science, you can get it from Journal Citation Report. This is the link. I think you can search about it, the Journal Citation Report, but your institute should have subscription for that. Scopus, they have alternative impact factor. They call it SGR. So Scopus database, journals indexed under Scopus, they have SGR. And this is the link if you want to search about any journal to get to know the SGR. Google Scholar, also they have impact factor for journal using other platform called Publish or Perish. So this is Web of Science. Yeah, so this is journal, the science journal. So what's the impact factor? In 2018, it's 40. This year, I think it's 41 or 42. And this is the category. So this journal is multidisciplinary. It will give you the category. How many issues? This is one of the criteria. This journal published 51. Then let's move, this is the impact factor. Let's move to the ranking of the journal. So usually we categorize the journals based on the levels of, based on impact factor into 4 categories: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. So we sort the impact factor in this descending. So the top 25% of the journals in that category, it should be Q1. Let's say if we are targeting category pharmacy or nursing or whatever, biochemistry. So we have to sort the reference, the journals. Let's say if we have 100 journals under this category. So the highest 25% highest impact factor, it will be Q1. Then from 26 to 50, it's Q2, and so on and so forth. Okay, so Q1 is the highest level of ISI journal. As you can see, this journal here, this is the impact factor. So it's 3, and the ranking, it's Q1, tier 1, in this category, plant science. And in the chemistry, it's Q2. It could be the same journal. It's ranked as tier 1 in one category and tier 2 in another category if this journal belongs to different categories. The previous one, it's for Web Science, but let's move to the Scopus. For Scopus, as I told you, they have SGR and they have ranking also. So the SGR for this journal, it's here, it's 32. So it could be Nature, it has impact factor 50 in the Web Science, but 32 in here, or vice versa, and it's Q1. So go to this website in order to check. It's based on your preference if you want to know the Scopus matrix or the Web of Science. Then let's move to the H-index. And actually, H-index is for the authors. So impact factor and ranking is for the journals. But H-index, it shows the reputation of the authors. So here I have listed researcher A has 6 publications. So the first publication got 10 citations, second publication got 8 citations, and then the researcher B, the first article got 1,348 citations. The second researcher have same number of articles, 6. So can you guess what's the H-index for both researcher? How to know the H-index? You have to arrange all of your articles in order by, so number 1, it should have the highest citation. So article number 1, it's not the oldest article, it's the one that have highest citation. And then after you sort all of your article, the number of citation, it should be equal or more to the number of article. This is the H-index. So the H-index for researcher A is 4, because the number of citation, it's equal or more than 4. So article number 5, it got how many citation? It's 4 citation. So 4, it's less than the number. So we cannot say that this researcher have H-index. This researcher A, will have H-index 5 when he can get more 1 citation. Okay, so the H-index here, it's 4. What about the second researcher? What's the H-index? Again, it's 4. Why it's 4? Because the number of citation here, it's equal to the number of paper. But what I want to emphasize here, researcher P, article 1 and 2 really got too high citation, too many citation, but researcher A got just few. So do you think H-index, it reflects also the reputation of the author? In one way, yes, because it reflects overall. So H-index, it reflects overall citation for all of your articles. So I have 50 articles, how many citation overall? But if I have, out of 50, if I have 10 articles with high citation, you have to go to individual citation in order to know if it's highly cited or not. Okay. So this is just I'd like to share. And by the way, H-index, it could be different based on the database. So for myself here, I share my H-index at Web of Science. So my H-index at Web of Science, it's 12, which means I have here 42 articles or whatever. So that I arranged based on the citation. Article number 12 got 12 or more citation. So my H-index will increase to 13 when article number 13 will have 13 citation. But I have my H-index at Scopus. So this is Scopus. This is Web of Science. At Scopus, it's different. It's 13. So it's based some during promotion here, or even during when you apply for a job, sometimes they ask for one of the criteria, your H-index. But you have to clarify, is it based on Scopus or based on Web of Science? Google Scholar, if you have account under Google Scholar, also it has H-index. So my H-index under Google Scholar, it's 15, which is a bit higher. Why? Because some journals, they are indexed, they cite my work, but they are not indexed under Scopus or Web of Science. They are just under, they are gray, under gray literature. They are under Google Scholar, okay? So the submission process, when you submit, after you select your journal, based on the previous criteria, you should check the aim and the scope, the guide for the author, and you have to follow the author guidelines, and you have to check the journal format in terms of title, abstract, whatever, even the quality of figures and tables. And then it's better, this is good advice, you have to read at least 5 to 10 articles published recently in that journal, should be recently, and then try to follow the style or the format. You should write, most of the journals, they request to upload cover letter. So what's the cover letter? In the cover letter, you should explain to the editor your work context. why they should accept your manuscript. But also in the cover letter, you should mention that your work is original, unpublished elsewhere, it's not submitted to another journals, the authors agreed with the final draft, and also state if there is conflict of interest. You can mention the funding or the ethics. This is the process of the submission. So usually when you submit, it go to the editor. So the editor either reject because it's not under the scope, or because the high rejection rate, or maybe they will accept. So accept, it means they will send it to the reviewer. It will go to the peer review. And usually as editor, we send it to more than 2 reviewer, 2 to 3 reviewer. So then it's based on the journal. Sometimes we give them 2 weeks to 2 months. So then if it's, we get back, they get back to the auditors by the comments. So either they reject, the editor, they can reject based on the comments, or accept, but it's rare, or they accept. So those are the 4 options: accept with minor correction, and this is again rare, and accepted with major correction. Most of the paper, if it passes this level, and it goes to the reviewer, either it will be rejected by the reviewer, or it will be accepted with major correction. Then you have to do all the correction and resubmit it, go back again to the same reviewer or other reviewer. Then if they accept, they will send you, they will just tell you, congratulations, your manuscript accepted, and then they will send you the page proof, and then you have to agree about the copy edit statement, and then will be published. So this process, it's based on the journal, between 3 to 6 months. As editor, usually the first, when you submit your manuscript, we have tools. So we check for plagiarism, the percentage of similarity. If more than 25 or 30%, usually we reject. Then we check based on title abstract, is it belong the scope? And then usually we have Q in the platform, in the portal itself, we have QA check for the reference and for different section of the articles. And then if the topic or the article is original and has high novelty, we send it to the reviewer. So types of review, there's 3 types of review, a peer review process. We have single blind, double blind, and open. So the journals that I'm editor, we have, it's open peer review, which means both the reviewer and the authors, they know each other. Some journals, they are single blind, which means only the reviewer, they know the names of the authors, but the authors, they don't know the reviewer. Other journals, they have double blind peer review, which means both reviewer and authors, they don't know. Of course, for publication, we have different guidelines like COB and KPP3. This is for the editors and the reviewers, so don't worry about those. Of course, those are important things that authors and editors, they look at. The ethics, if it's human study or animal study, and then plagiarism. As author, you have to ensure there is no misconduct, and also add to the author list only those they deserve that, and just to clear the conflict of interest. Okay, this is the common compliance or problem during the editorial process. If the research, the objectives poorly written, so there is no logical organization, or the manuscript poorly presented in terms of language or its flow, and then quality of the research. This is actually the third one. It's most of the papers rejected because of this, the quality of the research in terms of methodology, statistical analysis. Perhaps you can go through those later on, but one of them, if overestimation conclusion, or there is no supporting data for the claim. So most of the journals, the acceptance rate, it's less than 20%. Some journals, the acceptance rate only 5%, which means more than 80% of manuscripts will be rejected, and those are the different reason for rejection. So there's 3 scenarios for your manuscript: either rejected, or major correction, or minor correction. So if it's rejected, don't worry, calm down. Go through the comments. If they email you the comments, try to address all the comments to improve your manuscript, and then submit to another journal. Okay, but sometimes they request to one of the comments to add experiment or do statistical analysis. But if it's major correction, still some hope. So in this case, you have to address all of the comments. And if they request other experiment, you have to do it. Unless you justify why you haven't done it. If they request to add statistical analysis, you have to redo it using another approach or whatever. Okay. If it's minor, consider the manuscript it's almost accepted. And this is important tips generally, either minor correction or major correction. Don't argue with the editor. Try to express what you want in using scientific words. And try to submit your correction if it's minor or major within the stipulated time. So don't exceed. If you exceed the time you think you cannot make it, request extension. Okay, how to respond to reviewer comments? You have to respond to every comment. Okay, and it's better to arrange your answer, your reply in table format. So what's the comment? What's your answer? So then in the response, you have better make the author's life easier by referring to the correction in which line, which page number, then use different color format in the articles, or highlight the text, or use track changes. This is just general. If the comments, your statistical and tools that you use is not correct, don't say it's very clear that you are not familiar. I recommended you as author, as editor, to select another. Don't be rude. Try to, if you cannot make the comments, try to justify why you have used this tools or this statistical analysis. Then after an acceptance, of course, they will email you the proofreading. So you go through, and this is the last chance for you to correct the names and affiliation and minor correction only. Then I cover the copyright. Is it open access or closed access? So I'll move from this one. And then after it's published, if I want to post my articles in my website or university website in ResearchGate, you should go back to the journal and check, is it acceptable to upload the final format? So mostly if it's subscribed journal, you cannot, you don't have the right. But here I have added this website, Sharpa. Have you heard about this website? It's really good website. So the link is here. So just if you published one article few months back or last year, and you are not quite sure if you have the right to repost the article in ResearchGate, just open the website and then add the journal. So it will tell you preprint, yes, can be added. Postprint can be uploaded, and then the final version. So it means this journal is open access. While this journal, I added another journal, you can just only upload the preprint in your website, but you cannot upload the final version of your article. If you do that, the journal will contact you. They will say, we have the copyright because you didn't pay. We are subscribed journal. Okay, so let's move to the last part of this talk, and just quick, how to promote. So congratulations, now your manuscript published, it's accepted and published. Is that the end? No, as a researcher, it's not that easy. You have, especially academic staff, for promotion and also for reputation, you have to promote your publication. So it's the job, is the job over after you published? No, you have to promote. And yearly, as I told you, 1 million of articles published. So how you can? So this is just only few tips or few suggestions how you can promote. Share your paper with social media, so with LinkedIn, Twitter, you can share it when it's published. Try to attend conference and seminars. So when you present your work, you promote your work. Collaborate with international researchers. Upload if either preprint, if it's subscribed, or final version, if it's open access to your institution web page or repository. Try to open profile at different platforms like Scopus or COID, Kudos. Then almost I'm going to finish. Then link your publication to your email. So as you can see in my email here, I link my websites like Orchid, Papillon, Scobus. So it's kind of promotion. I think I'll skip Altmetrics. It's it will tell you how many your article, it's different than impact factor, how many saved, how many view or shared. So most of the journals, they have this Altmetrics. So I'll skip this one. This is also the Altmetrics. Okay, so those just few website platform where you can create account to promote. So try to open Google Scholar, to have Google Scholar website, or Orchid, or page, Research ID, Scobus, Academia, Mandly, Kudos, ResearchGate. So here, I just give you a few examples. For me, it's kind of promotion, and also at the same time to tell you that I'm busy. I have teaching responsibility, administrative work, I'm researcher, I have too many students, but still I created different account in different platform, and some of them it's updated by them. So this is my personal, my university website, and then this is my Google Scholar, and this is Orchid. All the publication is there. This is my Papillon. This is Scobus. This is the Loop. It's another platform. This is Academia. This is Kudos. This is Mandly. This is ResearchGate. It's another way. This is LinkedIn. So finally, write your manuscript from the beginning when you start your research. So when you do the methodology, try to write it at that time. Don't wait until you finish your project. Then you have to keep updated. In average, as I told you, as a researcher, you should read at least 100 articles per year. Be selective what you read. Use the keywords. Acknowledge the previous work. And then have publishing strategy. Which journals? Select the journals. Promote your work. And finally, we have 4C. 4C stands for critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity. So the final home message, just to show you this video, it's in YouTube. It's just 1 minute video, and I will end my presentation. So this is the home message. I'll just open the video. So actually this video, it represents, can you see the video? So actually this video, they have asked different people, children, adults, to get the nut. They put nut inside this maker or inside this big cylinder, and this cylinder, it's attached to the table. And let's see how they have get the nut. It's 1 minute. So what's the message that I want to say here? That do you think those people, they don't know that when they add the water actually, have you noticed the water was near them? It's the resources, it's available. Do you think those people, they don't know that when they put the water, the nut will flow and will get up, then they can collect or get the nut, but the monkey dead. So what I want to say, you have the knowledge. You can get the knowledge from seminars like this or workshops. I provide you with the knowledge, with some skills, with some tools, but you are the one who will know when to use those tools, or so you should have the skills of critical thinking, when to use this knowledge wisely. So with that, I end my talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
It's a very informative session. Uh, Sir, there are some questions. So can I read? Am I audible, sir?
Sure. Also, I can go through the chat.
Oh, no, I'll read for you, sir.
Sure, and don't worry, if you have any question, by the way, after this seminar, I have added my email in the first slide, so you can drop me an email, and also you can interact with me through LinkedIn. I have pages in LinkedIn ResearchGate. Just contact me. Usually I interact with my students, my collaborators through all those platforms. But let's answer a few questions now.
Okay, sure, sir. Only 2 to 4 questions. I'll just say. Sir, if someone is undertaking a research project, would one follow the same flow for writing, for introduction to conclusion, or is there any other format required?
So this format for what?
Research project.
Yeah.
If someone is writing a research project, one follow the same flow of for writing
No. If
from
I Yeah, if I understood, the question is about the proposal. So writing for proposal or for grants, it's different from writing to journal as manuscript. It's different from writing as thesis. So it has different format. And there is actually another workshop usually I conduct for writing proposal or proposal for grant, or even proposal for project, for PhD or whatever. So it's different format. What I explained today, mostly it's writing a manuscript, how to write a manuscript for journal.
yes, sir. Sir, one more. If we are used the any data set, then we will use statics of data set in abstract writing.
Yes, some of the data actually, because in the abstract, remember, there is a results section. So you can just emphasize the significant result in the abstract. But if the abstract, let's say abstract published as proceeding in conference, we can rewrite abstract for the journal, but we should paraphrase those the result section.
Okay, sir. If any question in a chat box, so I'll just drop a mail to you. So on behalf of University's Research and Development, Calgotia University, I really delighted. Thank you, Professor Mohammed, for delivering a wonderful session, how to write a great research paper. Even there is a very much informative session, then there is introduction, abstract, references, everything. Now I am sure that they can easily write it a research paper. What are they have the confusion, they can clear it. Thank you so much,
Most
sir.
welcome.
And
It's my pleasure.
sir, one last question, actually one question I want to ask. Can student writing research project as part of curriculum can make a research paper out of it?
Yeah, also can. Yeah, even for curriculum, because there is journal under the curriculum or education, so can. There is, so it's not just only we have manuscript for science field or social science or whatever. The most important, it should follow the structure or format of the journals. Can.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much being here. And you have to share your ideas, expertise. Thank you, sir.
Most welcome. It's my pleasure.
Okay, thank you, sir.